we are going to talk about sustainable growth. We're going to talk about moving forward. We have to know what we're saying now so that we can move forward to our next question, so that we can move forward to sustainable growth, so that we are achieving what we want to achieve by speaking and saying what we do, personalizing what we do, and sharing our knowledge and care with our community and with those who are around us. It's something we don't have to rush. It's something that we need to check in on. We need to make sure that we're up to date on.
Mentoring with Geraldine is a bite-sized practitioner podcast for naturopaths, nutritionists, herbalists, coaches, and practitioners. This podcast responds directly to the needs of you, the practicing natural therapist. We have interviews during the holiday season and business and mindset support each week, so you'll get the variety you need to enjoy and stay motivated in your practice. If you want to connect with me, always check the show notes, because that's where you'll find the links to book appointments. Now, let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mentoring with Geraldine and the Bite Size Podcast. How the devil are you? So, welcome to the nudge, the fortnightly nudge. So, this is just another short one because last week we did all the big work. So, big work. It was 20-minute recording. Obviously, the Strategy Lab people had more. They had the workbook. You too can be a Strategy Lab person. Let me just pop that out there for you. It's easy. Links in the stuff. Scroll down. You'll find the link to the Strategy Lab. Anyway, what we're talking about today is we did that identity work last week. So it doesn't matter if you're listening, if you're public facing or you're in the Strategy Lab, you were left with a job to do. And that was to go and check your bio, go and check what you've written about yourself and check that it's up to date, that it's feeling how you feel right now and how you feel as well going forward. Okay, you might need that new introduction, that new bio, or it might just be tweaks. It might just have been updates. And it doesn't matter if you were in just listing land or you were in the Strategy Lab, that was the job that you were left with. So how did it go? All right. Did you do it? That's why there's this nudge this week, because if you haven't had a chance, this is your nudge. This is your reminder to go and do that. So, it's not a rebrand. It was not a rebrand. It was nothing tough. It was literally it wasn't a full site update. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a really gentle look at what you have written about yourself and how you're upgrading yourself, how you have changed since you wrote those lines. Now, if you're just writing your website right at the moment, then easy. It's accurate. But chances are you started your website a year ago, 2 years ago, and things have changed. You've learned something new. You've done something different. Your client base has changed in some subtle way. So it was about putting those changes in there. It was about having the lines that we use in real conversation. And that's where the Strategy Lab portion was. That was the how to write those lines, what those lines were, and how to then use those lines. So that was the additional input that they had. What we don't want is perfectionism, right? What we want is to be able to get on and do it. We never want to be sitting around on, when I've done this, when I've finished that, I will go and do this. I just need to finish this. So, perfect example, I am recording with you. I am baking bread. Now, my bread, I could build a house with it, or we can eat it. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground just yet in my learning to bake bread. But it is actually much cheaper to bake bread than it is to go and buy it. And it doesn't take that long if you leave it to rise overnight. So that's another good analogy. Are you leaving some of these things to rise too long? Are you over kneading it? I definitely over kneaded this batch. I figured out what I'm doing wrong. But we've got to really look at what we're doing and what we're saying and how we're presenting ourselves to the world. And I've just admitted to you that my bread isn't always coming out, but I'm still trying. I'm still doing it. And we're still trying to eat it. I'm not hiding the results. I'm getting on with it. And when we don't do something, when we sit around just doing our website, we're actually holding back from the world. When we could actually just have pages that aren't visible and just have one page and then put another page up later and things like that. So don't try and be the perfectionist, truer, or doing beats perfect every single time. So just get on and do. And when we've written those lines and when we've understood what we're saying, how we're speaking to people, it won't be a barbecue at a potluck dinner at the moment because we're all inside. In the southern states, we're all inside because it's cold. When we go to these things and people say, what do you do? We're able to come out and say our line and feel confident with it. But not just confident, so we're a tall poppy, but rather confident and calm and relaxed into it. So that we're giving that trusting voice so that we sound like we're a trusted authority and we're the authority in our space and what we want to do. Our nervous system is on board with us, with what we're saying. So have you tried saying those new lines out loud yet? Have you tried saying them in front of a mirror? You're not human if you don't make a mistake, and you're not human if you don't try and fail. So you just need to get on and try a few times. The mirror isn't going to swat you on for getting it wrong. You just need to do it. Okay. Now, is there old language that you were using, and how is that outdated? There is old language in that we have new labels. PCOS is the old label. So there are new labels out there we have to learn. But apart from the new labely language, we also have new language for ourselves as we're more confident in what we say and how we say things. We're more confident in our knowledge. And we're also more confident in saying, I don't know, or I don't have the answer to that one. I will need to go and do some research, which is totally cool. Because if our clients, like most clients, have done their research and they've done all the Googling that there is to do, and they're still coming to you, then they know there's more to find out in a different way. Okay. That we're going to read the research papers. We're not just going to Google it. Okay. Now, September, remember, when we move into September, we are going to be thinking about sustainable growth. So that's where we're heading for the September episodes. That's where we're heading with the workbooks in the strategy lab. When I say workbooks, they're like 3 A4 pages with questions, and you can fill them out or not. You can just do them in your head or not, because there's no exams. There's no test at the end of this. You're not going to be given a smack on the knuckles with a ruler. Not that any of you who are listening will have experienced that in your childhood, but yeah, I remember that ruler on the knuckles. Anyway, and not from a nun either. They never smacked us. I know. Anyway, sustainable growth. That is next month. But we need to have this down pat before we can move to that, because we have to feel confident in who we are, what we're doing, and what our processes are. So we have to know that we're this person to be able to charge the amount we want to charge, to be able to change it. Maybe you are charging your worth already and you know that, but people aren't coming to you for some reason. It might be that you need to adjust how it's presented or the inclusions that are presented with it. You might be presenting it with old language. When 10 years ago, maybe more, 12, all of the Americans were saying, I was down to my last $1 and I was maxed out on all these credit cards and yada, yada, yada. It's a big thing to say, right? And I would never trust anyone who was down to their last $1 and working out of their parents' garage and, maxed out all their credit cards. Because clearly you can't handle money. Why would I come and see you for my support and help? I've never maxed out anything. I've always had funds. And why is that? Because I'm confident in what I do. I also gave myself a side gig. I didn't sit around in my parents' garage expecting my parents to do everything for me. I got myself side jobs while I was doing it. Well, I had a real job. I was a nurse. It's not a side job. But it became a side job as my naturopathy swelled. So my naturopathy became my main job, not my side job. And the nursing became my side job. So, we all have to build. But I wouldn't trust this ridiculous, it was about 12 years ago, maybe more. And it was a big thing to say, I was down to my last $1 and I had this amazing idea and look how incredible I am. So we don't want to be that person. We want to be the person that people will come to because of our knowledge, because of what we know, because of who we are and how we speak and how they see us, what they connect with when they see us. I did see an advert years and years and years ago. It was about inclusive advertising, which wasn't really a thing. Particularly, it's obviously more inclusive now. But back then it was a black woman and she said, I needed a new pair of leggings. I looked at them and they're all skinny white girls. And I thought, well, I'm not going to buy those leggings because they won't fit me. I'm not a skinny white girl. And it was just like, boom, mind blown. And yet that seems like so logical now, right? Because we have inclusive advertising. You expect to see people every size in leggings to purchase that legging, not just a size, what the American 0 or whatever, white girl with blonde hair looking super pretty. We expect to see a gamut of people wearing those leggings. Otherwise, we know they're not going to suit me either. But back then that was like mind blown, whereas now it's like logic. And that is some of the things that we're looking at here is sustainable growth is we have to look at where we are now, where we were then and where we're going and how we can compare all these things, how we compare that past knowledge, how we compare that to where we are and what people expect to see, what people expect to hear, but you need to be ahead of the game. So we need to be ahead of the game with what we have and what we're doing. And that's why we're here, right? So we only need to do tiny actions to get there, though. We don't need huge actions. Each mind-blown little bit of information that comes our way is still a small piece of information that works towards our ultimate goal. So, before the end of the month, because that's not that far away now, before the end of the month, I want you to use your new introduction in 3 separate real conversations, in proper conversations with people. And notice how it shifts you, right? Both in the room and inside of you when you actually use these lines that you've practiced of who you are now, what you encompass, what you've learned, and how you're sharing that information. So if you're in the strategy lab, then you will have written them down, you will have nutted them out using the paperwork there. If you're in podcast land, then you will have still thought about it. You'll still be acting on this information. I hope, fingers crossed, you're still acting on this information. I'm still here for you as well, even though you're not paying $35 a month to get, which is nothing. It's only a few coffees these days. Man, I saw a reel talking about bread. We weren't talking about bread at all. I'm just going to change the subject really quickly. I saw this reel thing, whatever it was, whatever one I was on, and this guy was selling bread in America, and his loaves of bread, his homemade loaves of bread, were $12. That's $12 a loaf. And I looked at that. I was like, man, I buy a fancy loaf for $9.50 Australian. And here I am currently baking my own. And I've bought a huge flour, Lauki flour. So really good quality South Australian Barossa Lauki flour. So I bought this huge bag of flour for $12. And it's okay to wreck a few loaves. And where that came from. But what I'm saying is it's the moving forward, it's the learning, it's the changing, and it's the cost of things, it's the value that we perceive and others perceive in us as well. And learning to price things, learning the understanding. I'm still buying bread. I don't actually eat that much bread, but I do like baking it. I'm feeding others. Really lost the plot just then, didn't I? I can smell it. It's just come out the oven. But we're going to talk about sustainable growth next time. $35, that's where it came from. $12 he was selling his loaves of bread. That's US dollars. $20 for a loaf of bread, 20 Australian dollars. It's just inconceivable. So I would, if you're paying $20 for a loaf of bread, then there really is a cost of living crisis, right? Anyway, let's talk about rising stars, not just rising bread. We are going to talk about sustainable growth. We're going to talk about moving forward. We have to know what we're saying now so that we can move forward to our next question, so that we can move forward to sustainable growth, so that we are achieving what we want to achieve by speaking and saying what we do, personalizing what we do, and sharing our knowledge and care with our community and with those who are around us. It's something we don't have to rush. It's something that we need to check in on. We need to make sure that we're up to date on. And ultimately, $35 in the US is a loaf and a half of bread, which is where that all came from. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to stop talking about bread, because a lot of you go, oh, I'm celiac, and here she is talking about bread. Oh, I didn't get on with bread. I've done the gluten-free. That's happening next. I've got to get through this bag of wheat and flour first before I can get on to gluten-free. But it's full of nuts and seeds and all sorts of things. So anyway, I'm sorry to the non-bread eaters out there. I take a gluten when I take it, when I eat it. Yeah. do as I say, not as I do. I'm an 80-20 naturopath. That is 80% goodness and 20%, well, at the moment it's 20% bread, but whatever. So I hope you've had a laugh with this podcast as well as some learnings. And this is our encourager. So next time will be a full podcast with the education sheet. So have a good one. Look after yourselves, and I will catch up with you on the next podcast. See ya.
Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast for the weekly episodes. Bye for now.